There's that old saying, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from really bad judgment. You've all heard that, right? So you're going to make mistakes. If you live a risk-free life, then you're going to keep doing the fifth grade over and over again. That's not what you want to do. If you're going to get ahead in this life, you have to be willing to take risk. Not recklessness, reasonable risk. You got to play big. You got to play bold. You've got to stretch. You got to be willing to get in over your head. Does that create anxiety? I'm sure it does. But if you want to get ahead, you're going to have to be willing to put it out there. There's something I've always done, and I'm pretty conservative financially. I don't do wild investments. I invest a lot of money in myself and my own projects. I'll have a lot of money out on things that I am involved in and control, but not in some harebrained scheme up in Wyoming. Maybe that will hit it big, maybe it won't. But I've always bought a house bigger than I needed or bigger than I could afford at the time I bought it. Now, why is that? You talk about people that are getting what is sometimes called house poor. They get so much house that they're poor, they're house poor. I've always bought a bigger office building than I needed at the time, more land than I needed at the time. Because if I buy what I need at that time, at that moment, and I am on the move, by definition, it's obsolete the day I buy it. If I buy an office building that meets my needs to a T the day I buy it, doesn't it become obsolete immediately? Unless I predict that I'm going to plateau and stay in that same position for the next 10 years. I have never believed that. I have always thought, this is a stretch today, but I'm going to be damn glad I've got it a year from now. I'm betting on me, and I've never been wrong. I've bought office buildings that were twice as big as I needed the day I bought them, and a year or two later, I was looking to expand. I've always planned that I was going to stretch to the next level, that I was going to aspire to a bigger degree, to a higher degree, to more success than I was experiencing at the time, because I know two things. Number one, I believe in myself, and number two, I'm willing to stretch. When I went on to the Paramount lot, I could have taken X number of square feet in the May West building. Instead, I took the entire first floor because I didn't plan to do one television show. 5 years ago, we produced 1,000 episodes of television across 5 different television shows. I had room to accommodate all of that and accommodate all of that staff. I knew that was my goal. I knew that was my plan. It was stated. I wrote it down. I put it on a timeline, and I took the steps necessary to get there. And I have plans going forward. I'm going to need more space, but that's a new challenge. We're all someone else yesterday, and we will be somebody else tomorrow. How about you? Are you willing to stretch? Now, I'm not saying be reckless. I mean, come on. You don't want to go out there and put your family in jeopardy by some pie in the sky. I'm going to buy a yacht. I'm going to get an airplane. I'm going to get some mansion on a hill that if you get so much as a head cold or miss one day, you go bankrupt. That's not what I call taking a reasonable risk. That's what I call living in fantasy land. But if you've set goals like we've talked about, you've written them down, you've put a timeline on there and determined that you can take the steps to meet that reasonable goal, then don't plan to be a year from now where you are now. Because if you do, every plan you make will be obsolete. Now think about that and make the distinction. I'm not saying to be reckless. And there are a lot of different forms of this. You've always heard people say dress for success. Dress like you plan to succeed. Conduct yourself like you are successful. You feel better, you look better, you're reacted to better if you present yourself that way. Don't you feel better when you take a shower and clean yourself up and put on the best clothes that you have and go out there presenting yourself the best way you possibly can? Of course you do. You cannot let fear of failure hold you back. Let me read your mind for a minute. Dr. Phil, what if I'm wrong? What if I take the risk? I stretch. Do what you're saying. I go for that job. What if anxiety takes over? What if I choke? What if I panic? It's gone well for you most of your life. Well, that's great for you. What if it doesn't go that well for me? Well, we talked about the what if game. Monsters live in the dark. Play that out to the end. If you're going to play the what if game, play it out to the end. Winners play it out to the end because monsters live in the dark, and the real consequences are never as dire as you imagine. What if you don't make it on your first time at bat? What if you don't get the results that you're looking for every single time you reach for the brass ring? Well, you pick yourself up and go again. The best golfer in the world loses 97% of the time. The best golfer in the world loses 97% of the time. Does he plan to win every single time he tees it up? Of course he does. You don't go out there and say, all right, man, I'm going to come in 20th today. Nobody does that. They all plan to win every single time. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. But you're always in the game and you're always striving. So what if you reach? What if you stretch and you don't get the result that you want? Then you take what you learned and you stretch again. You take what you learned and you stretch again. But you don't ever, ever stop reaching and stop stretching, because if you're not stretching, you're shrinking. And I promise you, when you get to the end of your life, it will not be the no's. It will not be the time in your life that you said, no, I think I'll pass. It will not be those times that you look back on fondly, reminisce about, and tell your grandchildren about. You won't sit there in your 70s with your grandkids all around you, starting their careers, and say, let me tell you about the time I didn't try to do better in my career. You think those will be the stories that you look back on fondly? Of course they won't. The highlights will be those times that you stretched yourself, that you took reasonable risk. And you hope, because they're reasonable and because you know what you're good at, because you practice your strengths, because you stay in your lane, that you're going to have your share of victories. I've taken some chances in my life that would make grown men throw up. But that's me. I'm okay with that, because if they don't work out, I know I'm okay with that. I was okay with it before I started. If this went totally bust, I'm okay with that. I've been poor. I know how to do poor. Wasn't that hard? Know how to do it. Never played the game of life with sweaty palms. You only play the game of life with sweaty palms if you don't play the what if game out to the end. Because you play it out to the end, what if I fail this time? Well, play that out to the end. And you know what you'll do? You'll find out, well, I'll still be alive. I'll still have people in my life that love me. I'll still have people in my life that I love. I'll still have my brain. I'll still have my body. I'll still have a skill set. And I'll get back in the game. You know, there's this girl that I'm really taken with. Maybe it's at your work. There's somebody that you really have become smitten with. And so you want to ask her to go on a date with you. Get your courage up and you go ask her. And she kind of laughs and says, no, I don't think so. And you're crushed. And you go, oh my God, I'm crushed. What am I going to do? Well, so what if she does that? What if she does it in front of her friends? And you're crushed. What if? Well, you'll go back and tell your friends. And if they're honest, they'll tell you that's happened to them too. You'll lick your wounds and go home and binge watch something on TV and get back in the game and go after something else the next time. Come on. They can't kill you. They kill you, they can't eat you. I mean, it's not that bad. Play the what if game out to the end.